If you were to have told me around the time I released my very first commentary that I'd continue doing these for 5 years to come, I probably would have called you crazy. I didn't even know if the commentary community was 5 years old at that point. And even then, most commentators I knew didn't stay for nearly that long. Not to mention, the primary style of videos I wanted to get into was countdown making. I wanted to use commentaries as a stepping stone to get into video making as a whole. And now here we are, 5 years, over 2,300 subs, about 500,000 total views, over a dozen different avatars, and a fuck ton of waifus later. Mimi's still the best one, by the way. I know in the grand scheme it's not a lot, but I don't care. I have people who like what I watch, and more importantly, I have people who care. And it's honestly more than I could ever really ask for. So to celebrate, I've decided I'd try and do something I've never done before. Probably because it's usually redundant, but whatever. I made a straw poll about this, most people who voted said yes, so here we go. I'm going to take a video that I've previously done a solo commentary on, and I'm going to cover it again. The question is, on what? If I wanted to avoid being completely redundant, I'd have to cover a source I could still add to. And one video came to mind. Particularly what I consider, looking back, as the worst countdown I have ever covered. Now, all we need is an appropriate avatar and background, so let's see. No. Fuck no. Why would I? What am I, gay? Now I am gay. Now I'm straight. Now I don't even know. Are you fucking kidding me? Look, am I ever gonna pick a good background? Okay, this is good, but I think it might be too good. So what, are we just going to resort to using a background that one of my friends made? Because not going to lie, I would totally do that. Now, the avatar. I don't feel like I want to use this. There is that one avatar I've been meaning to use for a while. I've just never found an appropriate place to introduce it. Well, what better time than the 5th anniversary? Let's do this! If we listen to each other's heart, we'll find we're never too far apart. And maybe love is the reason why, for the first time ever, we're seeing it eye to eye. If you're at all surprised I decided to revisit a Pokemon video, I question if you really know me. As my source is from 2013, I'll try to restrict all my information to whatever was in place at the time it was uploaded. In regards to Pokemon, that means nothing past Generation 5 will be considered. I apologize in advance if the Gen 5 sets Smogon provides are not the exact same ones provided way back when, but considering they still possess the same tools in the first place, and that the only notable change in tiers was Landorus Incarnate being bumped up to Ubers, this shouldn't be too much of an issue, hopefully. I'll also try and bring up shit he left in the comments of my original commentary, but to add from this, if you had more reasons than what you showed, why didn't you try bringing them up during your video? Surely, if you want your point to hold water, you want to better showcase the problems you're displaying, wouldn't you? Maybe there's a point where it gets to be too much, but believe me, this video never achieves that. Fuck it. Inconsistent aspect ratio. Probably more impressive of a feat considering the original video is already in a 4:3 aspect ratio, but it's still a sit. So is the actual aspect ratio. 35 seconds of video game clips. Ends with anime. Screen tearing. You picked a clip of Bowser saying, "This festival is over," as the video is only beginning. Is that supposed to be a metaphor? 2 Mario clips. This scene does not contain a lap dance. Absolutely nothing in this is well timed. It's like you wanted to take clips of your favorite video games or some shit, but you forgot to sync it up with your intro music. Speaking of, the audio is fucking ass. What, were you recording all the sound through a phone? Maybe that's just how bad the audio is from the source, but that's still a sin since you intentionally picked up terribly compressed music. Embor's a better starter anyways. The maximum video quality is 240p, and by God does it show. You didn't even bother changing the font from default Calibri. And reading. And the music just ends, because fuck fading out. Can you feel the sunshine? Does it brighten up your day? Don't you feel that sometimes you just need to run away?
Hello guys, this is DeAndre4, and here I am making my top 5 most overrated Pokemon list.
Hey, it's me complaining about the audio again. This time, apart from your lack of background music or lack of inflections to try and engage us, we are greeted with this. I'm sure you have, like, $20 or $30 you can spare on a semi-decent microphone, right? Also, Rayman is my favorite flying type, so A+ choice of avatar there.
Now, before I get on with the list, let me say a few things. The Pokemon on my overrated list are all good. I think every one of them good, and I like every one of them. And I just think they should get a little bit too much attention. That's all.
And I just think they should get a little too much attention. Excuse me, I did not order word salad with my countdown. Also, there's a fly in my soup. You are not getting your 5 stars on Yelp.
I will also avoid putting certain Pokemon on this list, mainly because they've been done to death already, and I want to be a little bit more unique.
I appreciate the thought. It's the only real thought you put into this video, but you do realize that you could be unique with your why and not your what. Right? Maybe a reason you consider something overrated differs from how everyone else considers it overrated. Related, but if a lot of people consider a Pokemon, game, movie, whatever, overrated for roughly the same reasons, shouldn't that go against said Pokemon, game, movie, whatever being overrated at all? Or at least to the degree that calling it overrated would imply? After all, a lot of people will be complaining about the supposed positives that landed it on the list to begin with. Kinda counterproductive, don't you think?
Number 5 on this list is Volcarona. I can already hear the fanboys trying to start a flame war.
Yeah, those 6 comments sure are frightening. But don't worry, DeAndre's safe from all this drama, cause he's hiding behind his flame shield!
Good thing I got the flash fire ability.
What, you thought I was fucking kidding? By the way, if you're gonna say antagonizing shit akin to this, here's a few steps to avoid making yourself look like a total douche carpet. Step 1, don't!
Now, one of the main problems I have with Volcarona is the quadruple weakness to rock type moves, which makes Stealth Rock users a pain in the ass. And this is something that I see a lot of people criticize Charizard for, and to have a complete 180 and praise Volcarona like it doesn't have the same weakness at all.
I love the text that just popped up here. You just implied that people think Volcarona is a better Pokemon than the Uber tier legendary Ho-Oh. No one does or should think that way. Maybe Ho-Oh was brought up because it shared Charizard's typing, but you do realize there's another Pokemon with that typing out there, right? One not found in Ubers, may I add? Yes, Fire Flying does have advantages over Fire Bug, but, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, why the fuck should that matter? Apart from the reverse being just as true, Volcarona has better stats than Charizard. It can improve its bulk and offense with Quiver Dance. It has multiple ways to heal itself. And it's not fucked by ground types if it uses Roost. If you're trying to suggest that Volcarona should be placed in lower tiers simply due to Stealth Rocks, tell that to Ho-Oh. I wonder how you feel about Kyogre, the king of Ubers, and how it can't touch NU tier Shedinja. What hurts us even more is your lack of proof that people said this. Like, not even a YouTube comment, which we all know is the most concrete form of evidence out there. This is really damning against you because Smogon itself points out its Stealth Rock weakness as one of the big drawbacks to Volcarona. So, not only does your assumption hold less water than a woman during childbirth, if it were true, I could at least see why. Because the competitive scene views Volcarona as good.
And I just find it unfair. And also, another weakness that Volcarona has is its low defense, which is basically like a big kidney sign. Any Pokemon that can outspeed Volcarona and hit it with a decent physical attack have a very good chance of taking it out, which is a huge flaw, especially because its speed is only 100, which is good, but still a lot of Pokemon can outspeed it.
Which is why most decent trainers would not keep Volcarona in on them, unless they knew either Volcarona could KO the opponent first, the trainer couldn't switch, or if they could sacrifice Volcarona in order to give the rest of the team a better shot at winning. That's the thing with weaknesses. Any rational trainer would not normally leave their Pokemon in on them without ulterior motives. The weaknesses are not negated, but they're never a source of praise. I mean, you don't see anyone praise Salamence for being 4 times weak to ice, do you? The only way I can see this shit fly is if you argued how much more exploitable these weaknesses are when compared to how everyone knows them, but you don't. And to rub salt in the wound, I'll explain why they aren't. According to Cerebee's Generation 5 speed list, Volcarona ranks 96. However, ranks 95 through 72 share Volcarona's base 100 speed, so you don't get to a Pokemon who definitively outspeeds it until rank 71. Plus, this counts pretty much every Pokemon and form in the game, including Uber tier Pokemon, Pokemon who suck in OU, and special attackers who lack the physical defense targeting Psyshock. I counted 10 Pokemon in OU that do outspeed Volcarona naturally and can target its defense stat. Terrakion, Garchomp, Infernape, Landorus, Dugtrio, Alakazam, Latios, Latias, Espeon, and Starmie. Funny thing, after a single Quiver Dance, all the Psyshock users, Landorus and Dugtrio are one-hit KO'd by a timid Volcarona with a Life Orb equipped with the appropriate stab move, and the other 3 are 2-hit KO'd at worst. Now if you don't have a boost up, lack a good 4th move, or if they're not burned, which Volcarona can very well do, why not switch out? I know you can't with Dugtrio because of Arena Trap, but otherwise, it's just as viable of a strategy as any other, especially if you switch into something the opponent couldn't do anything about. And even though burns won't affect Psyshock's damage output, none of them can one-hit KO a full health Volcarona with Psyshock without running Choice Specs, a modest nature, which screws over their highly valuable speed stats, or both. Even with both, Starmie can't one-hit KO with Psyshock, though it really doesn't need to since it's already part water. You got fucking Hydro Pump, what do you need Psyshock for?
And I know someone might bring up Quiver Dance.
Too late.
But pretty much 80% of people who use Volcarona have Quiver Dance on it, making it very predictable and skilled opponents can be able to take them out.
Skilled players in general can outplay goddamn everything. Quiver Dance is not special here. You don't argue how Quiver Dance is special here, so all I can say to that is, no fucking duh. Besides, you have a move that raises 3 stats, those stats also being Volcarona's 3 highest stats, and it helps Volcarona take on numerous roles, ranging from a sweeper to a special wall. See, the variety in Volcarona doesn't come in not including arguably its best move, it's what the other moves are. Between Bug Buzz, Fiery Dance, Fire Blast, Roost, Hurricane, Sunny Day, Hidden Power, Giga Drain, U-Turn, Rest, Morning Sun, all these are viable and allow Volcarona to take both offensive and defensive roles, and Quiver Dance serves to set Volcarona up for those roles. Mind you, these aren't sets without counters, but that's not to blame on most Volcarona having Quiver Dance. Whoever edited the audio for you needs to be fucking fired. Was it you? Well, fire yourself, fuck you.
It's Jolteon. Now, only going after Jolteon used as a special attacker, not used as a scout, because I know a lot of people use Jolteon for scouts and just vote switch away.
And right away, your number 4 shoots your number 5 in the foot. You outright claim that one of the aspects that made Jolteon good is worth it in your eyes. Meanwhile, Volcarona did not get such treatment, and you tackled the majority of its sets based solely on them having Quiver Dance. So, right from the get-go, I have to ask, why isn't Volcarona higher? No, you can't justify it with Volcarona's a better special attacker like you try to do at the end of the segment because, spoilers, number 2 and number 1 are both uber tier Pokemon. This is just inconsistent.
Now, Jolteon is a very fast Pokemon, and that's pretty much the only good thing that it got going for it, that it is really fast. Sure, it got good special attack, but that special attack is not amazing or spectacular.
But it is good, which is contradictory to what preceded it. Don't say Jolteon only has one good thing going for it, only to immediately follow that up with another thing going for it.
Which means that a Pokemon with decent bulk can be able to take a hit and be able to strike back. Which is something that you do not want to happen to your Jolteon, mainly because they have low defenses and low HP. Even if it got hit with a special attack, its low bulk will make sure it would die within a couple of hits.
Congratulations! You just described literally every glass cannon ever. Maybe this would be somewhat of a decent argument if anyone praised Jolteon for its bulk past that base 95 special defense. But then I'd pose the question, can you name me anyone that does?
And let's not forget its horrible move pool, where pretty much the only special move that you can learn other than electric are Bug, Ghost, Psychic, and Normal. And so I might bring up Hidden Power, but that can only cover one type, limiting Jolteon type coverage by a long shot.
The wording here kinda confuses me. I don't know if you're referring to Hidden Power only hitting one type, or only being one type. But for my sake, I'm covering both. If you mean you can only hit one type, no. Unless you possess a Dragon-type Hidden Power, any type it can be hits several types super effectively. If you mean it can only be one type, so it can still be any type except normal, and given how Jolteon's an electric type already, it can have Hidden Power Ice and perform the infamous Volt Beam combo, covering the entire metagame for neutral damage, save for the Magnezone line, Kyogre Killer, and Volt Absorb Lantern, and only one of them is relevant in OU. And whatever your complaint about Hidden Power is, can go back to every Pokemon in the game that the move can be recommended for. Sure, it doesn't take the complaint away, but certainly not exclusive to Jolteon, let alone a decent criticism of the move to begin with.
And I find it weird that people praise it as one of the best special attackers ever, when its special attack is only above average or good at best.
So I discovered the poll Deantry tried using here, and guess what? There were only 52 votes on it total, and Jolteon received the least number of votes for all specific Pokemon given. Even then, Jolteon is easily the fastest of all of them, so that could have been why it was there. Also worth noting, Chandelure and Porygon Z, two special attackers not in OU, but in UU, were not only included, but won the poll, despite other special attackers existing in OU. I can at least give you credit for trying to give an example, which is more than I can say for a lot of your list, but your example was fucked without a condom. Enjoy being a father. How many more off-color parenthood jokes am I gonna make? Jesus Christ.
And some people might bring up the Life Orb and choice specs, but those items are double-edged swords that either limit you to one move, or to drain your health after each attack.
You already said Jolteon has bad defenses, so why not focus on boosting Jolteon's moves? Once again highlighting Jolteon's speed by noting it's the fastest Pokemon in the tier. At that point, you're only gonna fear Priority, Choice Scarf, or bulky enough Pokemon. And yeah, Choice Specs locks you into a single move, but you get the equivalent to a stab boost. Oh no, certain items have side effects that prevent them from being completely exploitable. The horror.
And I just find there to be better sweepers out there, such as the previous mentioned Volcarona, who not only have a better special attack, but also better both with the HP and special defense.
You know what Jolteon has over all of your examples? One of them being a legendary, but I digress. Scouting. I like how you questioned Jolteon being good enough for OE this entire segment when you gave a perfectly good reason for it at the very start. Sure, Jolteon's outclassed in power, but once again, not in speed. Plus, ignoring one of the biggest draws for something in competition is kind of retarded. Not to mention, Full Switch pairs really well with the items you tried condemning recently. With Choice Specs, as long as the opponent isn't immune to electric, it'll force you to switch out, meaning you reset the move you were locked into. For the Life Orb, yeah, you drain a little HP, but it's not like they can hit you back to exploit that HP loss. By the way, good job being able to both spell and misspell special in the same blurb. Also, Gengar, that's my favorite Psy song. This was 2013, that song still had slight relevancy. Shut up!
Number 3 is Umbreon. Now my main problem with Umbreon is that the stats allow it to be used in only one way, a wall, which limit its capabilities.
And there are plenty of Pokemon in higher tiers that are only used for one role. Are they overrated now because they're there for one reason? Assuming it even is an issue, Smoggy beat you to the punch. What were you trying to accomplish?
Sure, someone can bring up the argument that Umbreon can be used offensively if you can get enough curses, but that made Umbreon pretty predictable, and a taunt user can be easily counter that.
So this one counter that you bring up totally discredits the entire set. Okay then, fuck Kyogre, just get shit into. Perfect logic.
And some people might say, so what if Umbreon can only be used as a wall? Some
Like-
Pokemon can only be used in that way, and still preserve their attention. But I find to be outclassed by other walls, such as Ferrothorn, Fortress, Porygon 2, Bronzong, and possibly Vaporeon, which is debatable.
Of the 5 examples you've just listed, 3 of them are in OU, which would mean something if not for Umbreon residing in Underused, the tier below OU. As for your other examples, Porygon 2 is more of a tank, Bronzong lacks reliable recovery, and Umbreon works better as a cleric anyways. With access to Wish and Heal Bell, Umbreon serves to restore your party better than any other Pokemon you brought up as an example. Except for, ironically, the one Pokemon you said was only debatably better, Vaporeon, who's in OU anyways, so the competitive scene would probably have already known that Umbreon was not as good as Vaporeon. But sure, let's go along with Umbreon being worse. That doesn't mean the praise Umbreon received is unjustified, or even there. You know, at least with Jolteon, you tried giving a poll suggesting that people thought highly of it, and at least with Volcarona, you said that people liked it. Umbreon doesn't even get that, it's just here. Yes, we could imply that Umbreon might have gotten favor as a wall, but the lack of anything to suggest that it was praised enough to be compared to OU tier walls when it wasn't even in OU really begs the question of why it's even on the list, let alone at number fucking 3.
And the reason why I think those are better walls is because of the fact that they either have entry hazard moves, other stats inducing moves other than Toxic or Confuse Ray, or it can actually defend itself in the battle. And also, some of these Pokemon can resist a lot of moves from different types, and can also be immune to some stats afflictions such as Toxic. Umbreon can also be flat out useless as well because of a certain move called Taunt. This move, Taunt, can be learned by a lot of Pokemon that can easily outspeed Umbreon. This can prevent Umbreon from being a very good wall because it prevents from using certain moves such as a Toxic or Wish. Basically handicapping it, which is something that you do not want to happen in the battle because it can give your opponent a huge advantage.
Hey, you know who else this applies to? Literally every example you just brought up. Maybe some Pokemon can function a little better even under the effects of Taunt, but Taunt can often force these Pokemon to switch because they have no better methods of dealing with the Pokemon who taunted them. Not to mention, Umbreon is easily faster than all of your examples. Once again, save for Vaporeon, who shares Umbreon's speed stat. The same holds true of that shit about how some Pokemon can resist Umbreon's primary ways of dealing damage, which not only is it far from the role of a team healer, and not only can that apply to most, if not all, walls, but it can apply to most, if not all, Pokemon. This entire time, you're condemning Umbreon for being a wall because walls have weaknesses. You know, I bet you're the type of guy who'll find the problems of sex while actually fucking.
And someone successfully used Taunt on Umbreon, you only had 2 options left. Option number 1 is to go on the offensive. And with Umbreon's pop gun like attack set, the only thing you have to worry about is foul play, which can leave you in the mercy of special attacking Pokemon, Pokemon with good physical defense, or Pokemon who are resistant to that attack, including most fighting types. And option number 2 is...
Aw, come on, even if you're shitting at anything, you could have done better. Don't you feel that sometimes you just need to run away? I'll give you this though. The clip's more entertaining than the rest of your video.
Which basically give your opponent a free turn. And some people might say, well, that can work for other walls as well. But at least for some other walls such as Skarmory or Vaporeon, or even Porygon 2, they can at least dish back some damage if they've ever been taunted.
So can Umbreon if it's up against the right Pokemon. You could be finding Pokemon with high attack, low defense, are weak to dark, or are all 3. Conversely, none of your examples can if they're up against the wrong Pokemon. What if Skarmory was up against an electric or steel type, or something that was physically defensive? What if Vaporeon was against another water type, a Pokemon whose ability to negate water damage, or especially defensive Pokemon? Porygon 2 may be the least guilty here, mostly because it's a tank rather than a supporter, but you'll still struggle against other special walls and Magneton's very existence. It is Magnus versus computers, the answer should be obvious. See, I can pick out examples to try and benefit my narrative too. Guess just all walls are overrated now, aren't they? Fuck you, Lugia! Actually, please don't take that seriously.
Number 2 on this list is Darkrai. Now, some of you might say that Darkrai is underrated, but Darkrai do get a fair share of attention among the legendary Pokemon. Sure, it may not be no Mewtwo or Rayquaza level, but still, it gets a decent amount of shine among the legendary Pokemon. And even on the Pokemon Power Bracket, Darkrai is easily one of the most popular Sinnoh legendaries out there, with its only competition being Giratina.
Which means fuck all when you look at your terrible image and see that the highest either got was in the top 8. The only significant Pokemon Darkrai beat was Kyogre, and neither Giratina nor Darkrai lost to the overall winner. In fact, considering that every other generation featured had at least one legendary in the semifinals, that's not very telling on the behalf of Gen 4's legendaries. To drive this point home further, IGN's top 100 Pokemon. Darkrai ranked 60th. Dialga and Giratina are both roughly 20 spots higher. Every other generation at the time, including the then recent Gen 5, had at least one legendary in the top 10. Fuck, now the Gen 4 fan inside of me is crying. It's all your fault.
The main problem I have with Darkrai is it overly reliant on its sleeping move, Darkboard, and pretty much this whole Pokemon is entirely reliant on sleep.
Okay, I noticed this earlier, but this is where your problem has peaked. DeAndre, it took me at least 3 tries to hear what you had to say. Your background music is just drowning you out right now. It's one thing to have a bad microphone. It's another to not even hear it. Man, good thing hypocrisy doesn't make you wrong.
Which make it very predictable and give you a lot of options to counter it, such as my option with using Sleep Talk on my Kyogre.
It's okay, TP. You can do this. You can do this. Sleep Talk can potentially fuck over Darkrai, but there's still a few issues with it. Since most Sleep Talk users paired to move up with Rest, and because Sleep Talk randomly chooses one of your moves to use, there's a 33% chance they'll pick Rest and do absolutely nothing, and that's assuming the other moves work. If you lack Rest, that should only go to show how big of a threat Sleep actually is in the Uber tier. If such a set needs to be run in order to give you a proper Darkrai counter, you're only proving why Darkrai was even banned to begin with. Not to mention, the Darkrai user might predict Sleep Talk and switch out. If the opponent is switching into something just so it can tank the Dark Void, especially since your example was the specially defensive Behemoth Kyogre, it's worth considering. Finally, Taunt completely shuts down Sleep Talk. You know, for as much as you wanted to crucify Umbreon due to Taunt's very existence, you seem to ignore how fucked your strategy would be if Darkrai decided to run it as well. Oops.
And I really don't see why it gets so much praise, because a grass type with the chlorophyll ability and sleep powder can do the same thing just as effectively.
Let's see. Darkrai doesn't require Sun support to be fast, Dark Void is 5% more accurate than Sleep Powder, Darkrai's ability damages sleeping enemies as opposed to Chlorophyll users requiring Chlorophyll to be fast, Darkrai is based off of fucking nightmares, do you see it now? Also, Chlorophyll users are just as fucked by your Sleep Talk example as Kyogre summons Rain, which negates the sun, so fuck you. Also, Shedinja still beats it.
And I always hate how some people say that Darkrai can beat Mewtwo just because they're a dark type. 2 words, Aura Sphere. Plus its special attack and speed, which is greater than Darkrai's, can usually lead to a 1-hit KO, or at the very least, a 2-hit KO.
Alright, but what if Mewtwo came in on one of Darkrai's attacks? Or what if Darkrai held a Choice Scarf while Mewtwo didn't? Sure, these are hypothetical situations, but they're not entirely implausible. Also, your only evidence to support your claims seems to be one fan image. No comments, nothing on Smoggin, just people say so. And even if people did say so, they have a point. Mewtwo coming in on a Dark Pulse or a Dark Void would only spell out trouble for the Mewtwo. The absolute most you could accomplish here is convince me to stick to Mewtwo if I'm not going to take advantage of Dark Void.
And even if you try to use it as a special sweeper without the assistance of Dark Void, it is heavily outclassed by Mewtwo in almost every category.
Imagine that. Well, I can still think of 2 categories in which Darkrai is debatably better. 1. Setup. Darkrai has access to Nasty Plot, which boosts its special attack stat by 2 stages. Mewtwo can only raise its special attack stat with Calm Mind, which only raises it by 1 stage. It raises special defense as well, so Mewtwo would be bulkier after a turn of setup, but Darkrai would definitely hit harder. 2. Stab. Dark is a far better attacking type in Ubers than Psychic. Ignoring Arceus and its multi-type bullshittery, Dark is super effective over 4 Pokemon and is only resisted by 4 Pokemon. Psychic, meanwhile, is resisted by 6 Pokemon, and the only natural poison or fighting type in Ubers is Blaziken. They may not be the greatest advantages without Dark Void, but they do exist. Then again, this implies you not run arguably the best move in Darkrai's arsenal. The Quiver Dance to its Volcarona, the Rapid Spin to its Forretress, the Splash to its Magikarp.
And another reason that people always overhype Darkrai is this role in the movie.
Shoutouts to Darkrai for being the only Pokemon on the list where you deviate from how you've judged literally everything else. Hey Yana, you want yourself a buddy? Also, I guess spoilers for the Darkrai movie here. I initially skipped this because I still couldn't upload past 15 minutes, and I knew I was going to commentate on a video where I might have spoiled it, even though I ultimately didn't. But I know I will for a commentary I hope to release later this year, and I don't have that time restriction anymore. Not to mention, I'm using this as filler so those wishing to avoid spoilers could skip to the time shown on screen, so screw you. Are we good? Good. Darkrai dies!
Now the main reason why people always say Darkrai is the best Pokemon ever for his role in the movie is mainly because of 2 reasons. One, the main reason is emotion. but it really doesn't help all that much in my eyes, mainly because a lot of other Pokemon can show emotions as well.
Allow me to present to you the extensive list of places I found where people praise Darkrai for giving off emotion.
He is the definitive proof that Pokemon can possess feelings, integrity, and even human spirit, regardless of how people feel about it.
List over. Are you sure it's not because Darkrai elicited emotions out of us? Because given that in the movie it performed a heroic sacrifice, I could totally understand why someone would feel that way. But whatever, let's assume it was because Darkrai was the one emoting. The only Pokemon you gave as a potential example was Pikachu, the main character's main Pokemon and the goddamn mascot of the entire franchise. And even then, you don't explain how Pikachu did it better, or more importantly, why we should care. It doesn't negate Darkrai emoting or how people feel about it. I swear to God, if you try and pull this bullshit one more time...
And sure, you can argue about it having a lot of depth and emotion, but even in that category, there's still some other Pokemon that can be considered deep as well.
I see a red door and I want it painted black. I should stop singing before I ruin this track.
The number 2 reason why people like Darkrai is its sacrifice. This reason I can also sort of understand, but it has been done by other Pokemon such as Latios, and I find it a little bit biased. A lot of people say Darkrai is the best Pokemon because he sacrificed himself, and close their mind about other Pokemon that have sacrificed themselves.
Implying people actually did that or do that, let alone to the magnitude you are suggesting. Implying people might just like Darkrai's situation more than those of Latios or Lucario. Implying this literally isn't just you complaining that something's been done before Darkrai, therefore screw it. Implying this hasn't given me ovarian cancer yet. And the person behind the avatar isn't even a girl. How the fuck did you do that? I get wanting to do something special for the number 1 transition, but why did you feel the need to repeat the previous transition on top of that? It only serves to pad the video out when we had less than 2 minutes remaining. DeAndre, what are you smoking and how much is it? I'm asking for a friend.
Number 1 on my list is Blaziken.
I'm upset. Not because Blaziken's here. No, it's because Blaziken won't be here because Emboar's a better starter. Fucking priorities, people.
Now Blaziken is a Pokemon that can find just as overrated as Charizard.
Which further begs the question of why you decided to put that rule in that restricted Pokemon found on other overrated lists to make this one. If you find Charizard and Blaziken to be almost equally overrated, you could have easily worked with this. Charizard could have been number 2, the more original choice could have been number 1, and you could have tried giving Charizard a decent reason for even being here. Knowing your track record, you probably still would have fucked it up somehow, but I'd like to believe that people can do some things right, okay?
Now, my main problem with Blaziken is the fact that most of the moves are given notorious powers can cause recoil and so far away, such as Flare Blitz or High Jump Kick, especially a guy Life Orb, making sure your chicken won't live long.
If recoil is this much of a detriment to you, hold the leftovers. You're gonna have Protect on you anyways, so you can spend an extra turn to heal up while raising your speed and mitigating the side effect of Flare Blitz. It's not like Smoggy's gonna show you out for it or anything.
And sure, you can consider using moves such as Blaziken or moves that don't cause recoil to your Blaziken, but these moves are weaker and make Blaziken easier to wall. And some of the moves such as Blaziken, Sky Uppercut, or Stone Edge have lower accuracy and you can miss your opponent.
But these moves don't have the side effect of recoil, so maybe it's worth your consideration. Especially Stone Edge to hit those flying types that would otherwise wall Blaziken's fighting moves. And I like how you're dismissing your own Hone Claw's counterpoint because it doesn't raise its attack as fast. It's a disadvantage to using Hone Claws over Sword Stance, sure, but if your biggest issue is missing your shots, the accuracy boost could end up being more beneficial. The best part about all this is that you don't even need High Jump Kick as your fighting type stab. Now I'll grant you that this wasn't the recommended move at the time of your video, but seeing as Blaziken can still learn this move via a move tutor in Black 2 and White 2, that really shouldn't matter. Smogon updates the movesets anyways if something new proves itself to work. How do I know this move would work? Because it's the move that eventually replaced High Jump Kick. Low Kick has perfect accuracy, so you won't even need to run Hone Claws. There's zero recoil in the unlikely event that it doesn't land, and while the power is dependent on the weight of the opponent, most Pokemon you'll want to use it against are heavy enough to give Low Kick enough power to hurt them anyways. To put this into perspective, A jolly-natured Blaziken with a Life Orb can KO Darkrai, Kyurem White, and non-physically defensive Dialga without a Sword Stance boost. With a boost, Low-Kick KOs Kyogre, Reshiram, Zekrom, Palkia, and Arceus forms weak to fighting. The only advantages High Jump Kick has are that it's always stronger and it's consistent in its power, but the only notable Uber tier Pokemon this might affect would be Manaphy. You know, a Pokemon almost exclusively found on rain teams, and just as fucked by Shedinja. So it's not even that wise to leave Blaziken in regardless. Now, holding leftovers over Life Orb does make some of those KOs harder to nab, especially if you don't choose to run an Animate Nature, but then it becomes a matter of whether you want Blaziken to hit harder or potentially live longer. Neither one is inherently wrong, unlike you.
And if you're going to use the Sword Stance on Blaziken, you're probably going to rely on defenses, which suck. You got hit by a really super effective move, you were good as dead.
Or you could not focus on defense and instead focus on attack. Apart from being the third frailest Pokemon in the tier, Smoggin points out that it can't take hits, even with investment. So why invest in stats that won't matter? Apologies for the assumption, but methinks you just had a bad time using Blaziken on Pokemon Showdown.
Even if you survive, because the Flare Blitz recoil can most likely kill you, or High Jump Kick recoil can kill you if it miss, or someone switch out to a Ghost Pokemon.
Home clause is still on the table. Assuming you still run High Jump Kick after remembering that Low Kick is a thing, consider this. If you know the opponent still has a Ghost type left on their team, why not wait until that Pokemon's taken care of before using High Jump Kick? At that point, it's not the fault of the move if your Blaziken chokes, it's your lack of foresight. Not the move, the actual word. Fuck you!
And priority moves can also lead to the downfall of Blaziken in a battle.
Priority can also lead to the downfall of my sex life. Who cares? Why is Blaziken so special when literally any Pokemon that lack priority are themselves susceptible to it? Again, I would cut some slack if you gave some fucking thing to show how big of a threat they could be, but you don't. In fact, let me show you how little you'll see it in Ubers. Only 4 Uber tier Pokemon can use priority attacks, or at least are recommended to do so. Rayquaza, Arceus, Deoxys, and Giratina. And depending on your form, if you have any entry hazards up, or if Blaziken already has a Sword Stance boost up, why would you leave Blaziken out against any of them? Arceus is the only one not naturally resistant or immune to fighting. It still can with the right played out, and even forms weak to fighting or fire can survive if they focus at all on HP. Deoxys, namely Deoxys attack form, often hold Focus Sash to ensure they can survive at least one blow, so even their low defenses can't be as exploited. Also, it's a Psychic type. Rayquaza resists both of Blaziken's stab moves and ignores any sun boost you might have had. And oh lord, Giratina! It has incredible bulk, it resists fire, it's immune to fighting, and it can phase out Blaziken with Dragon Tail or Roar, thus removing all of Blaziken's boosts. Its priority does the least to Blaziken, but when your premier set is called the Great Wall, why would you need to worry? Giratina's very existence is a counter to Blaziken. So yeah, the 4 Uber tier Pokemon with priority are Pokemon Blaziken should seldom fight anyways.
And this is why I do not like Blaziken as much as some other people, mainly because it is Suicide Bomb. Sure, it's great and powerful, but recoil and low defenses just kill it for me.
Don't think I didn't catch the death pun, you fuck! Way to end your goddamn #1 on an overrated list with a statement that comes off as it only being there because it's not your cup of tea. Fucking brilliant. And finally, the Entree's video ends. No fading out, the music just abruptly cuts, and all that's left of me is a pillar of salt, because holy fuck! Honestly, this was way worse than I remembered it being. Now, before I end this video, I've been saving 2 criticisms that absolutely kill all credibility with this list, even more than the rest of this commentary implied. The first is how Smoggin works and how little you've shown to understand it. To try and keep the tiers balanced, the community tests Pokemon based on use and viability. If a Pokemon sees use to the point of being over-centralized or requiring super specific counters to deal with, they're tested to see if they should be bumped up to the next tier. Conversely, if a Pokemon's lack of use or functionality begin to show, they could be placed under suspect to see what tier they best fall under. As an example of the latter, Kyurem Black, whose base stat total was only beaten out back then by Arceus. Its lackluster move pool to abuse its incredible attack stack and bad defensive typing deemed it more fitting to be an OU than an Ubers. As an example of the former, the 2 Uber tier Pokemon that made your list. Darkrai was incredibly fast, had great special attack, the moves to abuse it with, and had an 80% chance to incapacitate an opponent if not making them outright useless. As for Blaziken, after a single turn of setting up Swords Dance, not only could it outspeed most of the metagame thanks to Speed Boost, but in the Sun, even its premier counters were 2-hit KO'd. No Life Orb required. Deontray. You try comparing these Pokemon to others found within the same tier, or in Umbreon's case, Pokemon found in tiers above it, but to prove that they aren't as useful as you claimed them to be, you should have compared them to the Pokemon in the tiers below. Argue why they wouldn't be broken for lower tiers. Otherwise, their tier placements are justified, even if your criticisms were valid. Credibility killer number 2 comes in the form of another video, namely, top 5 most overrated and underrated Pokemon by the elite casual gamer. Is this really important? Am I only bringing up Leedy because he's my friend? Is Nico from Love Life secretly a trash bin? The answer to all of these is maybe. Okay, I'm sorry, I lied. The answer to the Nico question is yes. Does anyone remember what Deontray said about Quiver Dance from earlier?
And I know someone might bring up Quiver Dance, but pretty much 80% of people who use Volcarona had Quiver Dance on it, making it very predictable and skilled opponents can be able to take them out.
Now, let's take a look at one of Leedy's complaints for its number 2, for Alligator.
And I know what you fanboys are going to say to defend your precious crocodile, but it has Dragon Dance. If that and Aqua Jet are the only things to accommodate for it, that makes the Feraligatr placed on the field way too predictable and holding only one reliable moveset. If there is a Feraligatr, then it's a Dragon Dance set 95% of the time, allowing for its opponents to think of counters for it and also restricting the trainer to one mode of gameplay.
See the similarities? The key difference lies in the roles they take. Feraligatr is either going to be a sweeper or a wall breaker. Either way, it's purely offensive. Meanwhile, Quiver Dance boosting special defense sets up Volcarona for both offensive and defensive roles. Or how about when Deontray tries showing off Darkrai as the most popular Gen 4 legendary?
And even on the Pokemon Power Bracket, Darkrai is easily one of the most popular Sinnoh legendaries out there, with its only competition being Giratina.
Boy, doesn't that bracket look familiar?
Remember that one power bracket that I brought up, Arceus? Mew was the winner of that contest.
But rather than go after a Pokemon who only made the top 8, Leedy referred to the overall winner as overrated. So, not only did you damn near plagiarize Leedy's arguments and evidence, you failed to include what nuances made Leedy's arguments hold more ground than yours ever could. Strike 3 comes in the form of your transitions. Rather than use a clip of more oft-called overrated Pokemon like Mewtwo, Charizard, or even Eevee, you stuck with the Pokemon that topped Leedy's list. This is legit some of the least subtle dick-sucking I've ever seen. And just so you know, the only one who's allowed to suck Leedy's dick is me. Or Hobbs. It's a weird relation. And going back to how Smogon tiers work, at least when Leedy discussed a Pokemon's tier placement, he literally just used a clip from someone else's video, but he still tried arguing that Celadon shouldn't have been in Ubers based on his performance in OU, not based on his performance in Ubers. Again, Shedinja, Kyogre can't touch it. Step down, Blaziken, that's not your seat. Final thoughts time. The great irony of Deontray's list is that because he wanted to make the entries unique, the unoriginality with the reasons he provided became clear as day. When you weren't dick-sucking Leedy, you listed negatives about these Pokemon that Smogon could tell you. How's that supposed to add to anything? None of this was helped by that shit show you tried passing off as evidence. You know, the being generous here, 3 times you had them. Plus the constant misunderstanding of why a Pokemon was in the tier they're in, often coupled with trying to shoot them down because, lol, they have a weakness or something. While I'll grant you this wasn't the most unoriginal countdown I've seen, that honor either belonging to Wave's top 5 Pokemon generations or Jack Stevenson's top 5 favorite and least favorite final bosses, this list topped both of those by virtue of not even trying. At least Wave tried making his list controversial, even if that ended up hurting his list in the end. At least Jack, he has no style. Deontray still beat that by combining his obvious lack of effort with horrendous visuals, horrendous audio quality, which is probably even more impressive considering that Jack had to use a fucking screen recorder for his videos and audio, and trying to pass off your countdown as if the list was unique when, below the surface, it was just another overrated countdown. If it weren't for the fact that they just commentated on it, why should I have reason to care? So there, your 5-year anniversary comp that's a month late because I'm lazy or something. Now, before I go, I need you to prove to everyone why you are uber tier material. I know you can beat the best, now it's time to be the best. It's time, Shedinja. Do it. Oh. Okay, new plan. Let's get slushies instead.